Hi Rhonda, I would like to know more about past lives and reincarnation and how or if it fits within Celtic Shamanism, or if this life's patterns are predestined or ancestral karma. If the cauldron is empty from birth, why did I or others have so much suffering in childhood? This also leads me to ask, if my soul doesn't reincarnate, what happens to me in death according to Celtic Shamanism? There's like 3 workshops in that question. I love your curiosity. I'm going to try and answer this as well as I can with the time we have. Let's start with past lives and reincarnation. The Celts have a fundamental belief in reincarnation. It is absolutely a part of the Celtic shamanic landscape and Celtic mythology. And they believe in life after death to the point where it was all-consuming. It's what made them fearless warriors, because they believed that life and death were no different. Oh, hey, Jackie. Hi. Well, we've just started your question because Maureen might have to leave, so started with hers first. So nice to see you. We're just saying that the Celts had a fundamental belief in reincarnation, and they believed that life here and life in the other world were exactly the same. There was no difference. So when you die, you just were in the other worlds, and they had zero fear of death. In fact, often some would prefer death in battle to a death in old age. So they would often sacrifice animals, horses, weapons, so that a fallen warrior and ordinary folks as well could take these items into the other world and live well until it was time for them to reincarnate into their next life. Absolutely a fundamental part of Celtic shamanism. As far as life's patterns, ancestral karma is not a Celtic term. Karma is an Eastern mystical term. And the Celts actually had quite a different way to think about that. And I think this is really important difference, I think, in the spirituality practiced by the Celts, and actually the way I've naturally gravitated towards my work. We're going to swing over to the 3 cauldrons. The upper cauldron, Cori Soish, is, if you remember, those of you who've done the course, is upside down and empty at birth. For more than one reason, actually, but one of the reasons is to ensure that the person being born is empty of all effect and knowledge of past lives. So they don't take any of their past lives into their new life. And that was to create the opportunity for life for your hero's journey to start from the beginning. You had at the lower cauldron, then the mid cauldron, turn the mid cauldron, and then move to your upper cauldron. And living a life in Celtic culture meant impeccability, truthfulness, honesty, and courageous living. And that was the path of the cauldrons. You would have to turn your own upper cauldron and fill it with various things. You've all done the course. Go into detail about that. What you've also said is, if the cauldron is empty from birth, why did I or others have so much suffering in childhood? The upper cauldron's got nothing to do really with your childhood. It's not active, it's empty and upside down. It's the spiritual realm. You get there through living. You have to live first. Your lower cauldron, however, is connected to your childhood. Now, the lower cauldron is upright and full at birth. It's full of everything that we need to navigate childhood. But although that is the case, it doesn't always stay that way. The child within whom the cauldron sits requires tending by loving, available caregivers. To retain this gift from spirit, this energy or life force, you need a nourishing, caring environment. And unfortunately, that's usually not the case in our fast-paced, stressed-out Western culture. Young children are left alone too soon, rushed to independence too fast, and they're no longer held close, both physically and emotionally, until they're ready to find their feet as individuals. And that happens, to some extent, in every household, most households, to some extent. And this is what tips and empties this cauldron. But this cauldron would never be upside down because you would be dead, according to the poem, but it would be definitely on its side, or it would be filled, or the life force would be empty, or it would be filled with stuff other than you were given. And this is the place where you might find, this is a quick example, where you find your early childhood programming. If you have internalized a deeply critical parental voice, so now you are horrible to yourself all the time, the root of that problem is found in your lower cauldron. So that's where you would go to kind of work on that issue. That is the answer to what was next. I've explained what happens with suffering in childhood. And also suffering in childhood really does depend on when we're talking about, so Gabor Mate talks about big T trauma and small T trauma or adverse childhood experiences. And those can look like many, many things. You may have a parent or parents who work 3 jobs, give you everything that you need, you've got food on the table, they really love you, but they just couldn't be available for you emotionally or physically for one reason or another. And as a child, that's devastating. They did everything else for you, but they just couldn't be there emotionally because maybe they were really busy, or maybe they were really stressed out, or maybe you were really poor, or whatever the reasons were. 2 things can be true at once. You can love our parents and really love them and honour them and appreciate all the sacrifices they made, but still acknowledge that our little child didn't get what we needed, and that's small T trauma, which is what a lot of people overlook. And big T trauma, abuse of various kinds, surgery, like parental divorce, like the big shocking things that happen. What can be seen there is that depending on the temperament of the child, small T trauma can have the same effect physiologically and psychologically as big T trauma. There's actually no difference there depending on who you are as a person and how it affected you. So what you need to look at there is, how has it affected you? What is your truth? Never mind comparing it to anybody else.